Welcome to the Man Cave Podcast. This is your escape for real, unscripted conversations about sports, hobbies, life, and storytelling. No scripts, no forced takes, just Man Cave talk. Now, here's your host, Dan Kasper.
General Manager Brian Gutekunst is holding his season-ending presser later on today. If you had to ask him, or if you could ask him, one question about this team, what transpired this past season, and looking ahead to 2026, what would it be? I've got 5. All right, it's part of my Whiteboard Wednesday. I've got 5 questions that I would ask Packers General Manager Brian Gutekunst. And I'm sure we probably all have maybe some similar, or a lot of us have similar questions here. So if you're watching the video stream, here's my 5 questions for Goody. And we'll go through each one, and I'll explain a little bit. And if you're watching, you're probably like, dude, you have got some awful handwriting. Yes, I do. Number 1, how do you fix the offensive line? Okay? How do you fix the offensive line? Obviously, Rashan Walker is probably gone. Aaron Banks signing doesn't look great. You got Zach Tom coming off injury. Who's going to be your center? Sean Ryan is also a free agent. I mean, you got questions across the board. Jordan Morgan, is he going to be your future starting left tackle? You've put him all over the board. Where's Anthony Belton fitness? Is he going to straight up be a guard going forward? There's a lot of questions with this offensive line. How do you fix it? How big of a priority is this for you in the offseason? Is it number 1? Is it number 2? Is it number 3? It's got to be a top one. We know this. But how do you fix it? How is Jordan Morgan going to be your starting left tackle going forward? Aaron Banks, how disappointed were you in that signing so far in his first year? Is Sean Ryan a priority to bring back and keep him at center? Is Anthony Belton a fixture at right guard now? Zach Tom's at right tackle. We know that, and hopefully he comes back fully healthy. But how do you fix this offensive line? And the depth behind those guys, too. Because injuries are going to happen. How do you retool that? How do you get better depth with that group? Number 2, do you regret? Now, I know he'll never admit, but I'm going to throw it out there. Do you regret your cornerback decisions? Rolling with Keyshawn Nixon as your 1, Nate Hobbs, bringing him aboard and trying to convert him from a slot nickel where he was a better corner to an outside corner. That didn't work. Then you had Carrington Valentine. And then after that, what? I mean, Javon Bullard was solid as a slot/safety, but, I mean, your top 3, you didn't really go through a lot of injuries between Keyshawn and Carrington, so that was actually a positive because then your depth really would have been challenged there. Nate Hobbs couldn't stay healthy, but do you regret how you approached this season, this past season, with your cornerback group? Do you regret maybe not doing a better job or investing more into that outside of Nate Hobbs? Because you got to get better. We know this is probably going to be a high priority in the upcoming draft. I don't know if it'll be a priority in free agency for them, but they got to get better depth. They got to get better talent at that cornerback position, especially considering your new defensive coordinator wanting to drop extras in coverage. They need to get better, okay? I would ask, do you regret not doing enough with that cornerback room in the offseason? Number 3, we've talked about it during the season, early parts of the offseason, but what is your plan for Rashan Gary and Elgton Jenkins? I mean, it clearly seems like they're going to be cut candidates and open up some cap space. Yep, you're going to take some dead cap hit. But is that your plan? Is it going to be a post-June 1st cut? Are you going to try to trade for him at first, which good luck? Is there any interest maybe bringing back Jenkins for a really, really cheap deal just to help shore up that offensive line depth for maybe a year or so? What is your plan for those two guys? And if there was one that was maybe a little bit more likely to come back, would that be Elgton Jenkins because of the offensive line? I would think so, but he's also coming off of a serious injury too. So, but what is your plan for those two guys? And number 4, your defensive line priority. And I'm talking like the front 4 here. Let's pretend we're still 4-3 or that's where it's going to be at. So, obviously Mike on one end. I'm assuming Lucas Van Ness going to be on the other. But what's your priority in terms of, are you going to try to bring back Kingsley Enagbare, even though it's probably going to cost a little bit more? Devontae Wyatt, are you going to try to sign him to an extension, maybe to lower that 5th-year option cap hits? But what about the other interior defensive linemen? Are you looking to upgrade? Is it a big priority for you? What about the depth at edge rushers behind Micah and Lucas Van Ness? We saw some nice things from Baron Sorrell. Colin Oliver got a little bit in towards the end of the season. Are they going to depend on those two guys? That's probably my guess here. But what about the interior front, especially the big guys? Carl Brooks, Colby Wooden. Did you see enough from those guys to say, let's run it back with those guys? How big of a priority is it going to be for you to get better depth at the defensive line position, maybe specifically that interior front? And is it a huge priority for you to make sure you lock up Devontae Wyatt to a long-term extension? Or are you a little bit nervous because the guy has also had some injuries almost every single year? But defensive line priority, where's it at? And then finally, my 5th and final question, Quay or no Quay? That is the question. Because if we go back to the combine from last year, Goody was vocal about wanting to keep Quay Walker around, wanting to sign Quay Walker to an extension. Didn't want to do the 5th-year option because it'd be too much, but an extension actually would be cheaper. He was very, 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 very vocal and has been many times since then about wanting to keep Quay Walker in Green Bay. Yet there has been no extension and no new contract. So, what do you still feel that way? Do you look at this draft with some accounts, early looks at the draft, and from draft experts out there, many feel like there could be some options, plenty of options to replace Quay Walker in this draft. So do you move on from him, save a little bit of money, roll with Edgerrin Cooper because he's probably going to need a pay raise, go with Isaiah McDuffie, Hopper, and then another linebacker in a draft? But Quay or no Quay? That is the question. My honorable mention, because you always got to do a top 5 plus, right? My honorable mention, my other question that I would have added on here, if I get one more, if I get an extra credit question to ask Goody at his presser today, would be outside of maybe Devontae and then Quay, who is at the top of your list for an extension between Tucker, Jaden Reed, and I'll even throw Christian Watson in there. I know he signed the 1 year, but, I mean, he is eligible for another extension. What he did towards the end of the season and such and showed the importance within this offense. Like, how, if you had to rank them in terms of importance, or is maybe another way to ask it too is with Tucker Kraft coming off the ACL injury, is he a little bit nervous about wanting to give him an extension this offseason? Does he want to see him, get back on the field and play before devoting a lot of money to him? What about Reed? What about Watson? Like, how important is it for him, for this team? And those are 3 offensive players too, remember. But how important is it to get those 3 locked up long term for the future, for the now and for the future for this ball club. Did the Tucker Kraft injury put a pause on that? Because it sure seemed like before that injury, Tucker Kraft was going to be, Pro Bowl, setting some high marks and such. And I wouldn't have faulted him if after this season, if he was healthy and he put those high marks, he's like, yeah, I ain't going to training camp until I get a new contract. I don't think anybody would have faulted him. But now that ACL injury, it's kind of put that into question and flux a little bit. So there's no doubt there's some major questions that Brian Gutekunst has to figure out this offseason. The window is now for the next couple of years. What is he going to do for his part as the general manager, as the leader in the front office to get this team back to a Super Bowl and competing for a Super Bowl championship? I would throw another question on here too, another honorable mention. Kind of mentioned it the other day, but I'd still like to know this. With Elliott Wolf and John Schneider in the Super Bowl, does that drive you a little bit more? Yeah, Schneider, it's his third one. Elliott Wolf, it's his first one. Elliott, you got the job over Elliott in Green Bay, so, does that drive you a little bit? Does that get you motivated? I hope so. He probably wouldn't answer it publicly. That would have to be a question again. You're sitting at the bar and having a beer with him and such. So, those are my questions that I would ask Goody at his presser.